Welcome to the Ed O'Keefe Show. Transform your mind, accelerate your business, energize your body, and inspire the world. Now here is your host, Ed O'Keefe.
Hey everybody, it's Ed O'Keefe, and welcome to another episode of the Ed O'Keefe Show. Today I have on a 24-year veteran of the FBI, Chris Voss, the author of an awesome book called Never Split the Difference, Negotiating as if your life depended on it. Now, Chris is the founder and principal of the Black Swan Group, where he is actually consulting, providing training, and advising for Fortune 500 companies. Now, he has taught in many business schools, including the University of Southern California's Marshall School of Business, Georgetown University's McDonough School of Business, MIT Sloan School, Harvard University, Northwestern University, and a bunch of other things. Now, that's his formal introduction. I'm just going to let you know, before you dive on, you're about to meet a really, really cool guy that's got a very, very high level of emotional intelligence. And one of the things I liked about his book, and we go into it a lot, is how he just sees the world differently, and how he would take things that seem logically like they'd work, and he would do the exact opposite when negotiating for hostages, like real world death, kill people stuff. So he tells some of the stories inside here, and he gives some amazing, whether you're in sales, whether you have family members, whether you're negotiating deals. The fact is, when you're if you have to talk to human beings, you have to negotiate. So Chris is the real deal. And so hopefully you enjoy this. Let me know what you think on Twitter, on Facebook, wherever you may hang out or reside. And that's it. Hope you enjoy the show, and I will talk to you soon. All right, everybody, we're here with Mr. Chris Voss. What is happening, Chris?
It's just another day negotiating on the planet.
Everything's a negotiation. I love it. I was telling everybody before we came on about your background, and you have, we had dinner at Brian Kurtz's nice gathering just a few weeks ago, and I was kind of secretly envious that I was 2 seats away from you and Tim Larkin, and I was like, my God, would it be rude for me to stand up, move my chair over to plop in between the two of you just to listen to whatever you guys were talking about?
That was a great conversation, and that was a great meal too. It was fantastic people there for that dinner.
Yeah, excellent. So, what I wanted, we're going to dive into your book, Never Split the Difference, Negotiating as if your life depended on it. Because I love it. I've gone through it, and what I find amazing about it is it's very intuitive but counterintuitive. And what I mean by that is you pretty much flip all sales training, all negotiating training that's out there, that's in every sales course, whatever, literally on its head, and go right to the heart of like how to get people to kind of do what you want. Is that a fair assessment?
Yeah, it is. You don't pull out ahead of the pack also by doing the same things that everybody else is doing. Sometimes we want to get ahead by maybe doing the same things better. And, that's only an incremental change. If you want to stand out in front of others, you've got to do things that they don't do. And that's why this counterintuitive advice jumps you out in front of the C grade players and the B grade players.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, before we dive in, I know we're going to dive into some tactics and stuff. Can you take us back to before, when I was reading your book, and I was like, when I was really intrigued before you became FBI hostage negotiation I don't even know what the right words is, but it's you were doing New York City Joint Terror Task Force for 14 years.
Right. Yeah, I was on the Joint Terror Task Force in New York City as an investigator, and then I actually was volunteering on a suicide hotline before I became a hostage negotiator.
All right. Yes. Well, why don't we just take us in, dive into one of your crazy stories, because I know you got a bunch of them that will set a tone for this call. Is that cool?
Well, yeah, and the great thing about being on the terrorist task force also was when I got there, I mean, I was surrounded by a team of all-star players.
Oh.
Like almost everybody on the squad that I was on, had a book written about a case that they'd done. When I came in from the Pittsburgh division of the FBI, maybe there was one book written about something that had been done in Pittsburgh in 20 years. And I get plopped on the middle of a squad that everybody had books written about them. And the thing was, all these guys were great communicators. That's what I admired them. They got people to collaborate. They achieved things by their, great emotional intelligence, which is all hostage negotiation, a really good business negotiation is. So I was inspired by these guys that got witnesses to come in voluntarily, because they could connect with people. I was always impressed with that. And that's why the entire time that I wanted to learn how to connect with people, or even how to negotiate with a cutthroat adversary. So I'm there for a couple of years, and that's when we get the call that there's a bank robbery with hostages out in Brooklyn. And even though statistically speaking, there's like 10 or 15, quote, bank robberies with hostages every year in the whole country. And that's just the whole country, 10 or 15. Actually, a hostage taking where there's negotiations that ensue, where they get trapped inside, that happens about once every 20 years.
Wow, no
in the
kidding.
whole country.
Yeah, no
it's
kidding.
Really rare. And so we got a guy on the other side who is actually doing a lot of stuff that I come to find out are the tactics of sharp business negotiators. I mean, this guy, the biggest thing was you couldn't get this guy to use a singular personal pronoun to save his life. And what I mean by that is he wouldn't say I, me, or my.
Wow.
He was always laying the decision-making off on the other people. And, I've come to learn that that's a business tactic. Blame the guy not in the room. And if you're dealing with someone who will only say, those guys, the other people in the company, we, they, them, they're all about plural pronouns. You're dealing with the most influential guy on the other side because they know what they're doing. And I can remember back to those days, that day in Brooklyn. I mean, that's what that guy was doing. And we talked him out, and he was determined not to, he didn't want us to succeed. And the hostage negotiation technique that worked on him like a Jedi mind trick was, and I talk about it in the book, the mirror technique, which is, for a hostage negotiator, it's a little bit different than mirroring is for everybody else. What mirroring is for everybody else is, I'm going to mimic your body language. I'm going to mimic, how you talk, and mimic your affect. Like if you put your right hand to your chin, I'm going to put my right hand to my chin. That's not mirroring in hostage negotiation. Mirroring in hostage negotiation is just repeating the last 1 to 3 words that somebody just said. Word for word. And this guy, there's something about that triggers a reaction from the other side. And this guy just kept talking and kept giving us information, despite the fact that he wanted to give us nothing. And not only did it lead to his conviction, but it led to the conviction of one of the accomplices who'd actually gotten away from the scene.
Wow, that's really cool. Yeah, by the way, the whole mirroring thing that people do where they start doing the body language, what most people don't realize, Chris, is you're only supposed to actually use that when you can't gain rapport. Like most people, like if you ever get sold by a new sales rep who learns that, they come in and they're mimicking everything you do. You're like, is this guy an idiot? Like, why is he? I just scratched my nose. Now he's scratching his nose. Like, what the hell's he doing? I mean, it's funny. So
this becomes like a Marx Brothers routine where you want to see if he's going to scratch. You tug your right ear to see if he's going to do that, right?
Yeah. So you're talking about like taking their last 3 words, like of their language pattern, and then just reiterating it back to him in sequence. And then what happens? Do they end up like A, you get rapport, but B, do they just keep rambling on, which is kind of what you want?
And that's it. Somehow it triggers an involuntary response It also gets them to reword what they've just said. And in many cases, it's much better than you want to say to somebody, what did you mean by that? And the problem with that is, like, if you ask me what I meant by that, I think my words are so golden that I'm going to repeat exactly what I just said, only louder, kind of like an American trying to get directions in France, right?
Yeah.
So, but if you want to ask me what I meant by that, but you need me to reword it and you need me to expand on it, if you just mirror what I said, like if I say, look, this is a dynamic situation, we're not sure what to do. Your mirror would be, you're not sure what to do?
Bam.
And I would say, yeah, well, it's kind of confusing for us because we're dealing with 4 or 5 different situations at the same time. If I come up, and when I come back with that much information, I've just dumped a lot of great information on you.
Yeah.
Instead of I would just said, yeah, we're not sure what to do, instead of just repeating it louder.
Right. What I loved about, and instead of me saying what I loved about it, I'm going to ask you to go to the first story of your book. And it, because my palms started sweating when you, because, I have 7 children. I don't know if we even told you that the other night, but it's like when, I'm going to let you tell the story, but it's like when they said to you, like, hey, we've got your son, Voss, give us $1 million or he dies. I mean, it took me right to like, oh shit, what would I do in this situation? And could you walk us through the context of it and what kind of outlaid? Because that lesson I've thought a lot about that. Like, that stuck with me, the construct you use, and we'll dive in a second. But do you mind taking everybody through the little story, the backdrop on that?
Yeah, and I'd be happy to. And I also got to admit that I sandbagged the guy a little bit on that because I already knew that, we had constructed a very carefully worded open-ended question. It starts with the word how. And we'd been using it on terrorists and kidnappers literally around the world for a couple of years with no pushback. We'd always confounded them. And it's a version of how am I supposed to do that? And that's a very carefully crafted design to shift the burden to the other side and simultaneously make them feel empowered. So they have no idea. It's a powerful stealth weapon. So, I show up at Harvard, and the head of the program on negotiation, Bob Newcomb, is a great guy. He invites me into his office and he says, all right, so let's say I got your kid and I'm demanding $1 million. He says, what are you going to do? How are you going to talk your way out of this? And I, quote, innocently say, Bob, I'll just ask you a couple of open-ended questions. And he kind of snorts and he goes, really? And I'm like, yeah. And I know that my response is getting him to drop his guard already because I want him to underestimate me. And underestimation is a great tool in negotiation because you don't want the other side to raise their guard. And so, he kind of snorts a couple times, and he invites people in to watch because now, we're going to have a little duel, and he's convinced that he's going to spank me in front of everybody else. So he actually has the secretary come in with a tape recorder. And he has another woman, Gabriella Blum, come in, who's a Israeli Defense Forces attorney who's there as a visiting scholar. Brilliant woman. And so now, he looks at me and says, Voss, we got your kid, I need $1 million. Give me the $1 million by tomorrow morning, we kill him. And I say, how am I supposed to do that? Innocently, deferentially. There's great power deference. And he kind of blinks, and I could tell that his mind just sort of short circuits for a moment. But then he goes, no, we're going to kill him. And I said, well, how do I even know he's alive? And if I don't know he's alive, how am I supposed to pay you? And I've done this. I mean, I've literally coached this on terrorists around the world, and I know that there's no pushback. And he starts making stuff up. Well, we'll do this, we'll do that because you have to. And I just reword it, and I decided 3 or 4 minutes, and Gabriella says, "Don't let him do that to you." And he says, "Will you try?" And she's been sitting, and so she starts in on me. And I say, how am I supposed to do that? There's great power in deference. People don't know what to do with it. And we go back and forth with her, and he says, "Let me back in. I want to try some more." And so he jumps back in, and finally I've got him so frustrated that I kind of go, okay, enough, you guys, because I'm wearing them out. But it's how am I supposed to do that? Works from 13-year-olds trying to get video games, to contractors who are trying to raise their price.
Yeah, I love it. Where I think in our world, right, and like if you're in marketing, selling, whatever, or even kids, right, you're taught to find a way to persuade people to get your point across, to then try to get to a solution, and you think you're in control. But what you just did is you flipped the whole structure onto them, so now they think they got leverage on you, but now they have to solve the problem to help get their thing they're trying to get. Is that fair assessment a little bit?
Yeah, it's kind of three things at the same time. I mean, the secret to gaining the upper hand in a negotiation is giving the other side the illusion of control. And so then you combine that with, another phrase about negotiation is the art of letting the other side have your way. I want to get you talking so that I can subtly reject your answers, but keep you feeling like you're in control. So you feel in control if you're talking. Eventually, you're going to talk yourself into my deal, and then I'm going to say, "Brilliant! I'll do it." And you're going to feel really good about it because it was your idea. You just didn't know that I slowly walked you over in that direction.
Right. Excellent. So how did you were you always curious of people, like as a kid and prior to all this stuff, like growing up?
Yeah, I think I really started seeing it. I always wanted to connect with people, and then when I was a police officer, seeing cops work magic their words, and not escalate, but get stuff done quicker, connect with people, create outcomes that other cops couldn't do in this sort of soft, gentle, convincing way. Change people's behavior. That was just like, wow, that is amazing. And, I think, my parents, I'm a small town Midwestern guy from Iowa, and, both my parents were hardworking, decent, genuine people that like to connect with others, like to collaborate, but wouldn't get pushed around. Like you couldn't push my father around, you couldn't push my mother around, but they definitely like to connect with people. And I think I grew up with that as an idea of, yeah, we should collaborate, we should get stuff done, we should enjoy working with each other, and that probably came from my my small town Midwestern upbringing.
Yeah, right. That's awesome. Where did you? So you started developing this language, like you've coined a few things, and I'm trying to see which way I want to go first. But one of the things you wrote in your book that I thought was just brilliant was, if you can make your counterpart safe, they will reveal themselves. Where did that can you give us an example of where that started, I don't know, use the word manifesting, but where it showed up in your actual, in your work, like in a real life example?
Yeah, well, I think I started learning on the suicide hotlines when, as crazy as it sounds, on a suicide hotline, they limit you to 20 minutes per phone call. You see something in the movies, and a guy is suicidal. They got him on the phone for hours and hours, forever. And I remember, I'm like, you guys got to be kidding me! 20 minutes? Are you guys nuts? And then they explain about how defensive people are, and if you can get them to drop their defenses, how quickly they'll start opening up. Inadvertently, especially if you can hear it. If you can hear something that's driving someone that's true that they've forgotten is driving them. And yeah, you get on the phone with somebody, and in many cases it'd be a lot less than 20 minutes. And I thought this stuff is just too powerful. So what is going on here? How does this work? And how can I apply it to my personal life and my business? And then I used to actually like to see, I'd have a colleague that was struggling with something. I remember there was a woman one time that I was working with, a woman FBI agent in New York, and she was bad mouthing New York City. She didn't want to be there, and I said, it sounds like you're really hurting inside. And suddenly she let me know. I found out about a relationship that had just broken up earlier. And she was blaming it on the environment. She's really hurting inside. And it happened in a moment. I mean, as soon as I said that, a tear came down her face. And I thought, this stuff is just too powerful. It drives everything that we do. People, Stephen Covey says we want to understand people because people genuinely want to be understood. And it's kind of amazing how quickly people will cooperate once you reach that threshold.
Because most people are not really paying attention to them anyway, right? So it's like, even though we think, so it probably validates that just by acknowledging how they're feeling, you create like this. Wow, he or she this person actually gets me.
And also you said earlier that a lot of people are focused on getting their point across.
Right.
I mean, we're battered children, if you will. People trying to get their point across to us all the time. We're tired of it.
Yeah. So how did you mentally then, like when dealing with what people would say are like bad people? I think you were telling us at the dinner, like, you remember a time when you were in the Philippines dealing with multi-day negotiations with I don't know if it was terrorists or something like that, where like you had to get up and talk to just quote unquote like really bad people who do terrible things. How did you mentally, I guess, what did you tell yourself, or how did you posture it in your head that you're going to use these tactical empathy tools and seeing their perspective and getting to cooperate, even though they're like, how did you do that mentally? I think even that was one of the questions Joe was trying to ask you too.
Well, I'm a competitive guy. I mean, I want to do stuff other people, communication-wise, I want to do stuff other people can't pull off or that may have even failed at. And so, to me, this is an opportunity to use stuff that people say, if I explain it to them, they said, that'll never work. Really, that's it? Kind of like Bob Manukin. Really going to ask open-ended questions? Ha! Or, I did it to, I live in Los Angeles now, and people say hostage negotiator. It's interesting. It's kind of cute. What does a hostage negotiator do? Because they fancy themselves these great entertainment deal makers out here.
Yeah.
And I used to tell them, and they'd laugh at it. And now I say, we really don't do anything. It's nothing special. Because I know I'm going to be in a negotiation with these people, and I want to get my deal and have them never know what hit them.
Yes, yeah.
And a real desire to continue to do that, and that's the way it was with the terrorists. I mean, these were bad guys, and I wanted them to never know what we'd done to them. I wanted to completely sandbag them, and it happened in the Philippines because after the first kidnapping I worked there, when it was all said and done, and the bad guys got nothing, or we so completely confounded them, they became so disheartened and disrupted in what they were doing that our hostage actually walks away. Just walks away from them, and they get nothing. They get no ransom, they get nothing. And about a month after he walked away, our main terrorist killer calls the negotiator that I was coaching on the phone to congratulate him. He calls him on the phone and says, "Have you been promoted yet?" And he never knew what hit him. All he knew is that somehow we did him in. He just didn't know what it was. And afterwards, the only thing he could do was pay his respects. And I'm competitive enough that I want to be able to do that in a negotiation.
That's awesome. That's really, really awesome. I want to, one of the things that I used to run a dental marketing company where we actually got on the phone with clients and stuff like that. And I had a sales team, and, once in a while with new people, I'd get on the phone to help close a sale, or even the language in closing a sale is probably the wrong terminology. But I'm leading to a question here in a second, but like, what was funny is, you'd get guys on the phone and they'd be like, well, why should we buy your blank services, whatever, your marketing program? And I would say, well, I'm not really sure you should, to be honest with you. Like, you probably shouldn't, But I can help you if I can ask you a few questions. Do you mind? And they're like, yeah, of course. And then every question I asked them made them say no. Like, I had this, I would be like, well, are you guys doing this and doing it? And they were all stump questions that made the person feel completely inadequate. And I knew that. And then around the sixth question, I'm like, well, don't worry about, like, and then I'd let them off the hook, and I'd go, well, don't sweat this. This is like the stuff we do. That's what, everybody says no to all these things. But we never went to the yes sets, which you address really well in your book about, have you ever been sold and the guy's like, well, do you want to make more money? And you're like, well, yeah. And then, do you want this? Well, yeah. And you feel like your words you use in this are, you feel like you're being preyed upon. And it's because you are, right? So you have a whole chapter on like the power of no. Do you mind kind of give us a framework of where you discovered that, or how you came up to that and what it means?
Well, I started it off, Jim Camp wrote a book called Start With No, and it was about preserving the other side's right to say no, preserving their autonomy, and starting a negotiation like saying right off the bat, it's okay to say no to this, or you probably don't need this. Very much like you the way you started, what you were just talking about. You get, that's great emotional intelligence insight. Let me preserve the guy's autonomy so that his guard doesn't go up. And then after that, actually I was kicking it around with some of my hostage negotiators, and I said, here's this thing where we preserve their autonomy, we make them feel like it's okay to say no. One of my negotiators said, listen, let me tell you about this. And this is where I got the guy to say she was going to lose her position as negotiation coordinator in Pittsburgh because her boss was mad at her. And she looks at him and she says, do you want the FBI to fail? Which is a highly manipulative question, but in your instance and in this instance, it's just stunning what people are willing to say no to with no problem. You can make somebody feel inadequate, but the mere act of saying no makes people feel powerful because they're protected.
I like it. Yeah.
And it's stunning what people are willing to say no to, because it gives them a sense of power because they feel they protect themselves. And then that starts a whole nother conversation where then you can begin to trigger feelings of loss, like, well, what am I losing by not doing this?
Yeah, right.
And loss is double the motivator that gain is. Maybe even, actually the data indicates it may be a lot more than double the motivator. I heard a salesperson, when I was explaining this to him once, said, yeah, well, when I was taking sales training, they said we had to be able to demonstrate 9 times value to make a sale. And so that's an indicator that, 9x is the motivator. If you're going to sell gain, it better be worth 9 times what it costs.
Which is hard to do. That's a good leap, correct?
Yeah, it's huge.
Yeah.
Especially if you try to sell the gain.
Yeah.
When if you just focus the person on loss, where you're kind of like, look, if you don't do anything, this is what's going to happen to you. Sit still and do nothing, and it's going to cost you X amount of dollars over the next 30 days. Now you're trying to get people to avoid loss. And people are protecting themselves from loss, and it's a much bigger motivator.
Yeah.
And getting people to say no plays into that also. And it's also, you can clear, I've got people who work for me are kind of under standard orders late in the day when I'm tired. Ask me questions where the answer is no, because I can think more quickly through a no.
Isn't that something?
Yeah, and so we use it on a regular basis. It just helps people think more precisely and feel protected at the same time.
Yeah, and you actually made a great point in the book about, and I can relate to this with young kids, is that, why is it as a parent your knee-jerk response is no, is because it gives you like a breath, right? Like gives you some space to be like, all right, do they really need the new helmet or the new, baseball glove? It gives me space, right? So I love that.
Yeah, how often is Dad, can I? And you say no before they're even finished, right?
Totally. Like, you got to be freaking kidding me! You're asking more. So you designed that. Now just to respect your time here, man. Let's tell everybody, so how have you transitioned this now? Well, you got the book coming out, or the book's out. Everybody needs to go get it. Never Split the Difference by Chris Voss. Negotiating as if your life depended on it. And what I like about, because I've gone through those old things that you mentioned, I don't want to go down a rabbit hole of why this is totally different than the get them to say yes programs and stuff like that. It's pretty evident on everything we talked about. But what I love about this is you've really created a framework of how, Ed, this is just life. This, everything is how do we help people move in the direction that we want them to go, I guess.
Yeah.
So what are you doing now that you're no longer with the FBI, correct?
Right. Left the FBI several years ago.
Yep.
Teach in 2 different business schools. Marshall School of Business at the University of Southern California in the MBA program, and also in the Executive MBA program at Georgetown University's McDonough School of Business.
Nice.
And then we're coaching. I mean, we got a variety of, we got free stuff to help people get better. The book, Best Prices on Amazon, which probably goes without saying because Amazon's beating everybody on prices, right?
Yeah.
And also a bunch of reviews on Amazon. I mean, anybody listening to this, if you're having trouble making up your mind, check out the reviews.
Yeah.
It's a digestible book. It's easy to read. You don't need a PhD to figure out how to implement this stuff. And we offer, actually, if I can mention my newsletter,
please.
Twice a month, complimentary negotiation newsletter. If you text the words "That's right" with no punctuation, no spaces, just THATSRIGHT to the text it to 22828. That's right, no punctuation, no spaces, to 22828. You sign up for the free newsletter. It comes out twice a month. It also tells them we're starting to do training sessions around the country and when the next one will be and how to come out for it.
Yeah, so are you, so can you give, before I let you go here, can you give an example structurally of how you've seen things in the field as a hostage negotiator, and then how this has transitioned over and you've seen success in business or real negotiations?
Well, yeah, the great breakthroughs. I mean, my money's too important to me. I don't want to buy a deal that I could have gotten with a certain amount of emotional intelligence.
Yeah.
And a hostage negotiation being sort of, how do we get the deal and give up nothing? Get everything we want, give up nothing, still have the guy be happy with us. And then the other crazy thing that I learned is the teams that were better at this approach actually got to their deals, if you will, quicker than others did. So this is actually a way to save time. So, great application of emotional intelligence, sound the other side out. A friend of mine, Ned Coletti, is a former GM of the Los Angeles Dodgers. When he was negotiating with sports agents, he used to say, there'd be 2 hours of conversation. Inside that 2 hours would be 90 seconds of solid gold. How do you listen for the solid gold to make the deal? That's kind of the approach from hostage negotiation, works straight in business negotiation.
Yeah, and I, we're gonna have to have you out for my higher, my higher level coaching training. So I see you got the 3 hour, you got the 1 day, and the 2 day training. Today, I'll tell you something funny. Today I get on a phone with the CEO of a company that we can create enormous value for, and he's not seeing it. And we're not even asking for much in return. We're asking for an opportunity. And the more I was reading your book, I'm like, I've been approaching him too much with what we can do rather than understanding all the crazy dynamics he's got going on right now. Because, it's just getting pushed down the road instead of just really giving him space to just, not be afraid to. It's kind of hard to explain this on a podcast, so I don't want to go too in depth. But I'll just say that everything in your book has, the phone calls today in like an hour. So everything in your book has just been so really, really, like using tactical empathy, giving him the space to say no, so that we can find where he needs the support, and we can do a lot of great things together. Well, great, man. Is there anything, parting tips, any last key insights you'd like to give? I mean, this has been awesome. I could talk to you all day. You're the type of guy I'd want to, get a bottle of wine, or you're probably a whiskey guy or something, and just Scotch. Yeah, wait like 2 hours until hear like the real stories that you just are in the book. But so, is there any parting words you want to share with anybody?
I think if your reputation in business is that you're a straight shooter, which is different from being confrontational, but it is being honest with people and also being careful how you say things, but telling them the truth, I think you're going to be able to make great deals.
Yeah, I love it. All right, cool, man. Well, hey, Chris, thanks so much for taking the time. I know you're busy. I know you got a lot of great things going on, and I can't wait to get this out to my audience and help spread the message of the book. It's phenomenal, bro.
Excellent. Thank you, Ed. This is a fun conversation. I hope you get a lot of value out of it.
All right, thanks. Hey, it's Ed here. Thanks again for listening. But real quick before you leave, I want to tell you about two quick things. The two most common questions I get, and I want to answer them for you before I let you go and give you a special offer. So for entrepreneurs, aspiring entrepreneurs, people who just like what we're doing here at Ed O'Keefe Show, if you need help growing your business, figuring out a business, accelerating up the speed at which you accomplish your goals, make an impact, create bigger contribution while building a life that you were really meant to lead, first and foremost, do me a favor and subscribe to Ed O'Keefe Show, the podcast, and share it. This is a mission I have to have 1 million people downloading this every single month, and I cannot do that on my own. Secondly, pick up my book at www.timecollapsing.com. I give it away absolutely free. I just ask you pay shipping and handling, and people ask me all the time, like, why are you giving it away free? Well, bluntly put, because I think I can make a bigger contribution in this world by getting that book into 1 million people's hands as quickly as humanly possible. Now, obviously, we have academies and coaching clubs and seminars we put on, and if those fit for you, come join us. But please, pick up the book and let me know what you think about it. Secondly, if you're an athlete or if you're not an athlete, if you're someone who has aches and pains and wants to live a long, healthy life, then I'd like to give you an opportunity to take advantage of what I call my anti-inflammation health pack. People ask me all the time, like, well, Ed, they know I own a health supplement company, and they say, like, well, do you take your supplements? And I go, yeah, there's 3 supplements I take every single day. It's Marine D3, Omega Flex, and Body Ready Omega. Now, there's a quick story behind it. So let me tell you what it is. Did you know that in 1983, or 82 to 83, did you know that obesity, heart disease, diabetes, and who knows if they can trace back Alzheimer's and other things to this same time frame, but skyrocketed in the United States. Coincidentally, it was the same exact time that the government came out and the FDA and all these people and started coming out with margarine, saying fats are bad. Well, the fact of the matter is your brain, your heart, and most of your main organs are primarily fat. So in 1976, Dr. Jorn Dyerberg went up and he actually studied these Eskimos who lived in, I want to say Denmark. I may have it off. It was, Denmark. And they discovered that these people, they call them Inuits, were eating 80% seal blubber, like literal fat, yet they had zero heart disease. And across, the world, in Japan, the other population that literally smokes, drinks, and has horrible diets, but they eat fish all the time and seafood all the time, have more centurions. You know what that means? That means that they're living past 100 years old. So what is the commonality? Well, these populations have way more omega-3s in their diet. Now, over the past few years, what's happened is fish oil has gotten a really bad rap. And in a lot of ways, deservingly so. Now, I can go into this in depth. In fact, I'm going to do a whole podcast on the story. But to give you a opportunity, go to EdO'KeefeShow.com. That's EdO'KeefeShow.com. And I'm going to have like a special link up there or a banner that's going to let you go get my anti-inflammation pack for Ed O'Keefe Show listeners at literally 50% off. Here's why. I take this product religiously, and it is the number, I have probably a 5-point process of literally diffusing inflammation in the body, because inflammation is literally the thing that's causing most diseases in the body. It's the research behind it has never been more certain, and it's only growing. That like diabetes, heart disease, Alzheimer's, all these mega, even the big C word, which I wouldn't even say out loud on a podcast. Now, I'm not saying that our products can do anything to those diseases, okay? Because of FTC reasons, I can't make any claims. But what I would say is that if you're going to do anything to feel better, to have your joints feeling better, to have your body feeling better, I would go and make sure you are attacking the inflammatory process in your body. And these 3 products synergistically work magic on that. So I've sold over 500,000 bottles of these products. You're going to love them. We have great reviews, etc., etc., etc. So by going to EdO'KeefeShow.com, you can click on a banner or a link that's going to be there waiting for you, and it's going to take you to a page that'll give you a little bit more of a story, and as well give you a major discount that could allow you to feel as cool as I do, or better. All right, that's it. Have an amazing day, and please share this to the world.
And thank you so much for tuning into this episode of the podcast. You can find the show notes for this episode as well as all the other podcast episodes by heading on over to EdO'KeefeShow.com. If you would, please go subscribe to the podcast on iTunes and leave a rating and review. Rating and reviews truly are the best way for you to show your appreciation for the show, because they help more people find out about the podcast and decide if this is the one for them. So until next week, it's time for you to go out there, take action, and inspire the world.